And hello everyone and welcome to our first ever Regulation E tournament here for the 14th iteration of our Gym Challenge Sunday series, and we are here on a fresh start. My name is Jesus Coronel and sitting alongside me is my good friend Dennis Geisler. We just had the Teal Mask release this week and it's brought back so many new Pokemon. It's brought in some interesting new threats, and I want to know what your thoughts on the Teal Mask format.
There's so much that'll change, and there's so much that'll stay the same in this new format. I'm really fascinated by it. Tornadus is obviously going to still be good. Amoonguss, Urshifu, Cresselia, Iron Hands, Fluttermane, Hisuian Arcanine, all these Pokemon are still going to be very good. But there are also a lot of new picks and a lot of stuff that gained some things, and we're going to see a couple of them in this first battle, especially from Sean's side, with the Rillaboom gaining Grassy Glide back, the Ogerpon with the Wellspring Mask, as well as Tyranitar with Knockoff, and Como back in the game.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good returning Pokemon coming in here, like especially the Como coming back. You know, Clangorous Soul's still a pretty good move if you can set it up properly.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side, Nicholas Stavrakis is back with the Mono Fairy team with a new update. It has a Clefairy now, which is introduced from the Teal Mask, and he still retains the Grimmsnarl, the Enamorous Incarnate, the Fluttermane, the Azumarill, and the Tinkaton.
Yeah, we saw this Mono Fairy team before. I really liked it before. I thought the Clefairy, I think the Clefairy is a really good add. It helps your bulkiness quite a bit. It gives you a Follow Me user. Clefairy gets Life Dew, which is a really nice support. Like, it's just a great support Pokemon to bring all together. Something I am interested to see here, the Como here is an Iron Defense, Protect, Iron Head, Body Press, very high defense stat, and Bulletproof, as well as Terra Steel, which might be why we are seeing it early on in this matchup, where otherwise you would not want to bring it against a bunch of Fairy types. Well, that's something we saw about Nicholas's team the last time we saw it, is that it has a bunch of Fairy types, but not necessarily a ton of Fairy type moves.
Yeah, we see the blue fleets here, and interestingly enough, we do see the Como coming in for Sean Pinto, and we're going to see the Grassy guy set up the Grassy terrain, no more abilities to activate, and we see an Admirous Tinkaton for Nicholas, and this looks like a pretty good turn to go for the Fake Out Clangorous. Fake Out Iron Defense, because Body Press, still a pretty considerable move, especially against that Tinkaton right now.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be... I'm curious to see what the decision is here, because yeah, Como definitely has options to set up here, but you also can't really let yourself get hit by, you know, all of the moves that, because I mean there is still two play roughs facing you in the other direction. Although at the same time, that Enamorous does want to set up with Superpower with the contrary for Enamorous Incarnate.
Instead, we're going to see Rillaboom switch out, so no fake outs coming in here, as we're going to see the Ogerpon Wellspring Mask form come into play, and this is the first time we're going to see Ogerpon in this format, a very interesting grass-type Pokemon that changes type based on its mask it's wearing. Como going to protect, but instead a fake out just goes into the Ogerpon slot, as Tinkaton reveals a Life Orb, and Enamorous tries to go for the Superpower into the Como's protect.
Yeah, so pretty good first turn for Sean, I'd say. You get to get the Ogerpon out here. I wonder what the Ogerpon does in this situation here, and Como seems to be in serious, is in obvious serious danger here, facing down the Enamorous, although the Enamorous seemed happy to just Superpower and try to get that attack and defense boost.
Not only that, but it also called out the Terra Steel, because Superpower is a fighting type attack, which is super effective to a Steel type attack. Should the Como go for the Terra Steel, which pretty much obviously for the Fairy types that we see here, and we did see that Tinkaton can do some damage to that Life Orb, but we're going to see it switch out instead.
Lets you reset the Fake Out, which is always nice, and it means an Azumarill is now potentially a threat on the field.
Oh, and also Como going to switch out back into the Rillaboom, so maybe you're fine now taking that Superpower from that attack, and instead we're going to see Nicholas Terra the Enamorous, and it's going to be the Terra Steel.
Very fascinating. Very, very fascinating. I feel like I'm most interested to see what the Enamorous does on the field right now. I feel like it's the most volatile Pokemon, even if it does just click.
Here's the first move of the game, and it's Ivy Cudgel. Actually, not enough to knock out the Enamorous. It is going to get a Superpower off. It's going to get some good damage off to the Rillaboom. Going to raise its attack and defense stats thanks to the contrary ability. And then the Grassy Terrain is going to go off, and Ivy Cudgel, Ogerpon's signature move, is a brand new move, and it's a grass type move, but it changes type based on what mask it's holding.
Yeah, and that did some pretty ridiculous damage right there onto a decently bulky Enamorus. We'll have to see now, because Enamorus is slower than everything on the field. Azumarill isn't necessarily going to help. Enamorus, unless it switches out, is probably just gone, and that's the Terra gone as well.
Yeah, instead now we're going to see the Tinkaton come in on the Azumarill. Doesn't want to take a grass type attack that way, and the Enamorus just going to safely protect. Tries to see if anything went its way so it could get a survivability turn here, and Rillaboom just also the brand new Grassy Glide attack, and it goes into the Tinkaton, not doing a lot of damage thanks to a change to Grassy Glide, as we see Ivy Cudgel just go into the Enamorus to protect.
Yeah, and now the Fake Out is reset, so both Rillaboom and Ogerpon have to potentially deal with getting stopped here, trying to take down Enamorus after that protect, but at the same time, I mean, I'd be curious. Grassy Glide was reduced in power a little bit. It's 55 base power now, I believe. So with a +1 defense Enamorus, I honestly don't know 100% whether a Grassy Glide would finish off the Enamorus here, which would be a huge bonus for Nicholas.
And then on top of that, the grassy terrain is actually healing the Enamorus now that it's no longer a flying type, so it's pretty getting more attacks in, but instead we're just going to see Spiky Shield coming in here to protect the Ogerpon, and the Fake Out does go into the Spiky Shield, so Tinkaton's going to take some damage on contact.
Yeah, and that's another big thing about Ogerpon. It gets that Spiky Shield, which isn't a massive... Ooh.
Oh, the Play Rough just not enough to knock out the Rillaboom here, and instead we're just going to see the Wood Hammer knock out the Tinkaton, but it might take the Rillaboom down with it with the recoil.
I think it should, yeah.
And down goes the Rillaboom, so a 1-for-1 trade here. Enamorus is going to get a bit more health back, but what does Sean do here? Because Como is not in a great spot here, unless he has Terra, which he does bring it out.
Yeah, I mean, Como-O's not in a terrible spot. I'm not sure exactly what Nicholas is going to be bringing out. It is the Flutter Mane, which is a bit of a danger to that Como. But at the same time, I think Como-O's in a decent spot to Terra here, because Ogerpon threatens Enamorus so heavily that Como-O doesn't have to be too worried about the superpower coming out, because Enamorus is just gone if it does not protect here, and Ogerpon can just kind of threaten that protect and allow Como to set up basically whatever it wants in this instance.
I also forget if so. We do go on the Bulletproof is on the Como-O, and I forget which moves Bulletproof actually protects Como-O from. But instead, we're just not going to find out just yet, as Como just wanted to protect to make sure no superpower or play rough goes its way. Moonblast goes into the Ogerpon, not going to be enough to knock it out. Woodhammer comes out. This should be enough to knock out the Enamorus, especially with the grassy terrain, and it is going to be enough for the grassy terrain and the +1 defense boost.
Yep, and that means that it's just down to the Azumarill and the Flutter Mane, although Ogerpon does take that recoil very low on health. Is that the last turn? Yes, it is the last turn of Grassy Terrain. I'm glad that I can count. We'll see how much damage Azumarill can do here. Remember, the Aqua Jet does not actually do anything into Ogerpon because of that water absorb ability.
Especially since it could be redirected, because it does have the move Follow Me, which redirects all attacks to Ogerpon, and it's all going to come down to this Flutter Mane, because if Bulletproof actually prevents Dazzling Gleam from being touched into the Como-O, that's probably going to be a lot of trouble.
I don't, this Flutter Mane doesn't have Dazzling Gleam, and I don't think it prevents Dazzling Gleam, but I think it does prevent Incredible?
It prevents most
really
bullet moves.
hurt a Steel type Como-O.
Yeah, we are going to see a Steel typing go into the Como-O with the Terastallization. It will boost that Iron Head's damage output, but more importantly, dodges Moonblast and Fake Out and Play Rough from being super effective. And we're going to see Ogerpon just go for a Spiky Shield here. Maybe he tries to catch a Play Rough into the Ogerpon and just wants to shield it for another turn. We get a Mystical Fire instead, and it goes into the newly super effective Como-O. Going to lower its special attack stat, but we're going to see the Iron Head come out now. Where did it target? I'm pretty sure it has to target the Flutter Mane here. It does, but it survives on the Focus Sash.
Yeah, the Focus Sash Flutter Mane really helps there. Now it can basically do what it wants next turn.
Oh my goodness, the Liquidation just not enough to knock out the Como-O here. And you have to think Nicholas did read Sean's Terra there on the Como-O.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really great read from Nicholas, picking up the Como-O as well as picking up the Ogerpon Protect. not targeting anything into the Ogerpon. At this point now, you can kind of play on autopilot a little bit if you're Nicholas. I feel like Fluttermane just takes out Ogerpon here, and Azumarill can probably take just a Aqua Jet into the Como slot. I'll be real, I was not paying enough attention. I think Como is faster than Azumarill. Yeah.
It was, and instead we're just going to see a follow me, so probably going to try to pick off something like that Aqua Jet, get some HP recovery, and
That's
what
smart.
happens.
That's very smart.
Yeah, now Ogerpon's going to get some HP back, maybe against the survivability against this Fluttermane, but it does double target, makes that follow me, and Ogerpon will feigns, but it does do a job well, which is to protect the Como. And what's going to happen here? Another Iron Head, and it just should be knocking out the Fluttermane here, and it will.
Yeah. And now we're in an interesting spot here because we're going to end up in basically a one-on-one between Hisuian Arcanine and Como after Azumarill is able to pick up the finisher on Como. I honestly do not know who wins this.
That's the thing, and also
there's the -1.
Yeah, there's the Intimidate as well, because Arcanine cannot tear away from the double water weakness. And Aqua Jet's enough to pick up both Pokemon more than likely. Just going to protect some HP back with that leftovers, but did it Aqua Jet the Arcanine? That's the big question right now, and it did not.
Yeah, that's rough for Nicholas, and I think that might be it with the Arcanine having Will-O-Wisp.
And it does land.
I don't think the Azumarill, I'm not even 100% sure the Azumarill will finish off the Como here through the leftovers with -1 attack plus the Will-O-Wisp having the attack. It might finish off the Como, but it'll be a real struggle even to break through the quadruple weak Arcanine.
I mean, I still think Aqua Jet has a chance to knock it out, but now with the Intimidate and the Will-O-Wisp, I don't think that's the case anymore. It probably has to go for that liquidation to do anything, but we're going to find out right here. Yeah, not even doing half.
Yeah. That definitely would not have finished off the Como.
See the Rock Slide come out here, and important to note that the Rock Slide actually did not do so much damage to that Azumarill, and even that Iron Hand didn't do a lot of damage, even though the Rock Slide was a single target.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this Azumarill is surprisingly bulky, especially. It is a Assault Vest.
Yeah.
But it's surprisingly physically bulky for having an Assault Vest.
Yeah, maybe that's just some things adaptation that Azumarill probably needs to be doing, especially with these new incoming decks such as that Ogerpon.
Mm-hmm. In any case, I think Sean has finished this one out basically, very slowly, but has definitely. Yeah, they did nothing.
Rock Slide comes out again from the Azumarill, and Arcanine gets that knockout, and we're going to game 1. Sean winning the game 1 convincingly.
Yeah, definitely a very solid game 1 victory there for Sean. I wonder what happens if Nicholas targets differently on that Aqua Jet. Definitely got a couple of Aqua Jets red down near the end of that one. I do wonder, yeah, I wonder what happens if it plays out slightly differently. I feel like we could have ended up very easily in a more direct one-on-one between that Azumarill and the Hisuian Arcanine. But Sean did a great job playing around that, and it'll be on Nicholas to try to change something up in the second game. Was definitely in a position towards the end to win it, not necessarily a terrible matchup the entire time, might go with a similar lead.
That Ogerpon was actually pretty much a problem for that Azumarill.
That Ogerpon was a real problem. The follow me with the with a lot of water type moves flying around. Like, you don't necessarily see Azumarill Aqua Jet all that often, but you do see Aqua Jet on Urshifu Rapid Strike, as well as just surging strikes in general, which is a real benefit to that Ogerpon being able to totally wall that Pokemon with how good it is.
Not only that, but it can redirect the potential spores from Amoonguss as well, and even Grassy Glide, even though it would be neutral damage, you still be taking the hit. You know, it's like an even mix of an offense and defensive Pokemon at the same time, and I'm wondering if Nicholas takes a different approach for this game, knowing that Ogerpon.
Yeah, and everyone is learning how to play around Ogerpon right now. It has only been released for less than a week.
We're going to go into game 2 here. Sean's up 1-0 in this series, and Nicholas is going to switch it up a little bit, bringing Grimmsnarl on Amherst Incarnate here. Sean switching it up as well, going for a Tyranitar and the Hisuian Arcanine, which unfortunately gave Amherst an attack boost, makes it Intimidate, as we're going to get the Sandstorm.
Yeah, the big difference for Tyranitar now, it has Knockoff, which is not something Tyranitar has had for a little while, and it definitely gives Tyranitar something to do in whatever situation. Knockoff's such a strong move, and it also sets up that Sandstream to help out the Arcanine's special defense, although it doesn't really matter that much right now with Grimmsnarl not really threatening any damage.
Yeah, Tyranitar also not in a good position to take a superpower anytime
Yeah,
soon.
exactly.
Rillaboom just going to come in. I wonder what the Grimmsnarl's going to do here, because this Grimmsnarl can actually boost up an Amorous should it choose to with that scary face, or just go for a defensive variant with screens here. Instead, we're going to see a Terrassalization, but is it the Enamorous again? And it is Enamorous to steal for a second consecutive game.
It's good here because you also get the special defense boost on top of and ignoring the...
I'm pretty sure the special defense was
Oh,
always
sorry. It is only on rock types. Yeah, blanked on that one for a minute.
Yeah, instead we're just going to see a Reflect here. We do see a superpower come out, and actually the Enamorous is faster than the Hisuian and Arcanine. And we're going to get another attack boost and a defense boost for the Enamorous, so it's going to get more scarier and scarier. Rock Slide does miss the Enamorous, does hit the Grimmsnarl though, but that Reflect is going to set it up beautifully.
That was surprising speed on that Enamorous Incarnate, or alternatively surprisingly low speed on the Arcanine.
Yeah, and now thanks to the grassy terrain, and actually the Terra Steel actually puts Enamorous in a pretty good position with the grassy terrain and Sandstorm to get back HP.
Yeah, exactly. With the grassy terrain and the Sandstorm, it only regenerates HP. It does have the safety goggles anyways, but I don't really know what threatens the Enamorous too heavily at this point. I suppose a Flare Blitz from that Arcanine would certainly do some real damage, but also Enamorous is very strong right now and has a lot of bulk coming in here.
Yeah, but we're not going to see the bulk just yet. We're just seeing Enamorous just go for the protect as it tries to dodge that Will-O-Wisp by protecting it in the first place. And this Grimmsnarl actually went for an attack this turn. Rillaboom goes for the Wood Hammer, and it's enough to knock out the Grimmsnarl through the Reflect.
That's a bit surprising. The only attacking move that Grimmsnarl has is Crunch. Don't know what it would be trying to crunch in this instance, but in any case, a good turn for Sean, certainly, being able to get one of these Pokemon out of the way, but at the same time, it means that Grimmsnarl, who is not threatening anything, is off the field, and it means that Fluttermane, who is very threatening, is now on the field.
Yeah, except it does have the threat of that Grassy Glide, and which Fluttermane pretty fail. And oh, not powerful enough. That's the nerf intact. And Fluttermane just says, I'm just going to brush off that Grassy Glide. I know it got nerfed. I'm not scared of it. I'm just going to take you out.
Yeah, and I was very curious to see what that would look like there with Grassy Glide.
Oh, +2 superpower. Enough to knock out the Arcanine. One hit, and Sean's down 2 Pokemon.
Yeah, and I'm thinking Nicholas is starting to run away with this one. That Enamorous is really big, really strong. There are not a whole lot of answers, potentially, to this Enamorous at this point.
It might have to be the Ogerpon that has to go for a Terrassalization at this point, because Tyranitar's Terrassalization, we just saw it from the game screen, it was Psychic, and it's not really doing much touching other than maybe dodging a superpower, super effective hit.
Certainly true. I just, I struggle to see how that much physical damage can come onto the Enamorous at that point. Although, Ivy Cudgel does have that increased critical hit chance to bypass the defense and potentially try to score a quick knockout onto the Enamorous. Not a high percentage play, but it might be the only especially good play that Sean has to try to get out of this one.
Yeah, we are going to see his Terrassalization come out for Sean, and it looks like he locked in Terra Psychic on Tyranitar. Doesn't want to lose it to a double attack.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it probably would have gotten taken down by just a superpower, so at least trying to buy an extra turn, get the target in the wrong slot. We know that Ogerpon will take at least one Moonblast.
No, Tyranitar is actually going to be the target of that move. Here goes Ivy Cudgel. Doesn't get the critical hit, does not. And actually does a considerable amount of damage. Superpower does double into the Tyranitar. Is enough to survive thanks to the Tykatura. But does it get anywhere close for a knockout because of that +3 defense boost. The knockoff comes off into the Enamorous, not doing enough damage, but knocks off the safety goggles.
Yeah, it's not useless. I honestly probably think that it would have been better to focus the Fluttermane. It lets Ogerpon have the speed priority in this overall matchup, and it means that, I mean, you get to at least see what the last Pokemon is, which can be useful in the for the final game of this best-of-3 series. I'm not to write off Sean's chances here, but it's gonna be tough to take down this Enamorus. I know that they got half of Enamorus' health in the last turn, but Flutter Mane, barring a miracle, I don't see how Tyranitar gets past this move.
Yeah, Moonbot's just not going to be able to give Tyranitar any more time here. And this should be Enamorus just getting a knockout onto the Ogerpon thanks to all of those superpower boosts. Unless this Ivy Cudgel, oh, it went after this Flutter Mane, never mind.
Yeah, and I think that Enamorus will clean this one up here. That is a, what, +4 attack?
It is a +4. Here's a superpower, and there is no focus that should be found because it is wearing that Wellspring Mask, and Nicholas evens the series.
Yeah, and we've got an exciting one to start. Nicholas's Mono Fairy team is probably one of the most enjoyable to watch that I think we've had. You get a lot of very strange matchups, a lot of 3-game series that I feel like we've seen these past 2 times he's brought it. And I'm interested to see what we get in game number 3 here, because I mean, we saw in that second game the setup with Grimmsnarl setting up the Reflect with a Light Clay and Enamorus just kind of setting up with Superpower. It was kind of a unaggressive start from Sean, which allowed Enamorus to set up all the boosts that it needed to kind of run away with that game.
Yeah.
So now I wonder if Sean will try to get a little bit more aggressive to start out this one, try to deal with the Enamorus a little faster, and kind of move down the list like that.
But I also feel like in this situation, in game 2, he let Rillaboom, Hisuian Arcanine, and then the Hisuian Arcanine actually backfired almost immediately against Sean because of that contrary boost for that for the Enamorus, and then also interesting to note that Woodhammer still got a KO on the Grimmsnarl near max HP with a Reflect up.
Yeah, that was definitely a lot of damage, and that Grimmsnarl in general, not necessarily super physically bulky, but I also wonder how much of it is intentional. That because at that point, Grimmsnarl was not exerting a lot of pressure, and was mostly going to allow one of 2 Pokemon to damage Enamorus over time, and so getting a Grimmsnarl out of the way after doing its job and setting up a layer of Reflect, setting up a screen, and then getting the Flutter Mane in might be the plan altogether for Nicholas. I liked how that was done.
I also want... Okay, so we're going into this game 3 here. Either player can win this round, and we've only seen 1 new Pokemon come out so far, which is the Ogerpon. We have... I mean, two technically with the Como, but Como kind of had to go for a late game sweep and had a Terra Red already. And we're going to see... We're going into game 3. It's Azumarill Flutter Mane against Flutter Mane Ogerpon.
Yeah, 2 Flutter Manes, which is always a dicey matchup for both Flutter Manes, although that one does have the speed booster energy, so Sean's will be the fastest Flutter Mane on the field.
And with that speed, it actually gives Ogerpon the speed it needs to outrun both Azumarill and Flutter Mane. It could go for either the Woodhammer or the Ivy Cudgel, depending on who he wants to knock out, but I wonder who's more of the threat here for Sean, because you have the Como-O, which I did see he locked in. It was like, what's more of a threat, the Azumarill or the Flutter Mane? Yeah,
that's... I wonder.
Icy Wind does hit both Pokemon, so we're not going to get that speed boost, and no Protects came out from Nicholas, and I believe I saw an Ivy Cudgel go into the Flutter Mane slot, and
we'll see what exactly we get.
Yeah, it's going to be Ivy Cudgel into the Flutter Mane. No physical bulk, and there's the first critical hit of the day.
There is the first critical hit of the day. I don't think it mattered at all, but that's a huge knockout to start this one out.
Oh, and the player of not another knock at the Flutter Mane, and just lives on 11 HP.
Yeah, and Sean has a pretty strong advantage at this point. Azumarill does have the Aqua Jet, but that has to be concerned about the Ogerpon Follow Me, potentially. Yeah. Getting the Aqua Jet redirected, and at that point, Grimmsnarl can try to do something. A Crunch would definitely finish off. Well, a Crunch would also get Follow Me, so...
It's just pick your poison right now with this Azumarill, because if you go for Aqua Jet, you could get into the Water Absorb Follow Me. It is going to be the Follow Me coming out, so if it was going for that Aqua Jet, it's going to get absorbed by Ogerpon's ability, and no Aqua Jet came out, we're just getting a Reflect.
Yeah.
See what the Flutter Mane does. He just goes for the Moonblast, he goes into the Grimmsnarl, and now Grimmsnarl wishes to set up Light Screen instead.
Yeah, and Flutter Mane will be up for another turn, regardless of what Azumarill does here. Yeah, Ogerpon takes hits pretty well. For not being an extremely bulky Pokemon, Ogerpon can exert some defensive pressure like that, able to protect a much less bulky teammate like Flutter Mane. I really like this Ogerpon thing. Ogerpon Wellspring, I wasn't super huge on it. I mean, it feels like every single Ogerpon mask has its own quirks and values. I'm excited to see more of them as this goes on, but Wellspring showing up pretty well in this game.
Yeah, now we're seeing the Enamorus come in from Nicholas, and it just protects immediately. So let's see what just happens here. It's going to be a Shadow Ball into the Enamorus slot, so wants to get some damage in without giving it a superpower chance. And one hammer just goes into the Azumarill, and Azumarill actually survives, and Ogerpon faints, so Water Absorb worry is now gone.
Yeah, and that should mean that whatever move Azumarill uses here,
Play rough, and it is another knock on the Flutter Mane, and now we're in even to standstill, with Nicholas' disadvantage being he has Reflect.
yeah, that is absolutely true.
Oh, and that's 2 physical attackers.
It is 2 physical attackers. The Reflect is up. Neither side has used their Terra yet. I think it could come down to a prediction on the Kommo-o, whether the Kommo-o decides to Terra or not. I think the Azumarill is pretty much gone. I think Grassy Glide can come into Azumarill pretty easily and just finish it off. I think the question here is what Kommo-o will do, whether it Terras, whether it does not Terra, what it tries to do against this Enamorus.
If he's trying to go for a body press into the Enamorus, he's predicting the Terra Steel.
Yeah, I mean, both sides know the other's best option is to Terra Steel right now.
Oh, we actually see bulk gate there. Is the Terra? Is it the Azumarill or is it the Enamorus? If it's the Azumarill, this could catch it off guard. No, it's just going to be the Enamorus for a 3rd game in a row wins the Terra Steel.
Yeah, even an Azumarill Terra Fire probably would not have taken the Grassy Glide.
And we do see the Terra come out. I think this is Kommo-o going for a Terra Steel here. And I believe I saw it also click Iron Defense, so he's hopeful that the Kommo-o survives the turn.
Yeah. And I don't know how much a superpower will do right now. It's not boosted by anything.
Grassy Glide comes out. It's just going to pick off the Azumarill from the low range. Nicholas's hopes ride down onto this Enamorus Incarnate. As Superpower comes out, reads the Terra perfectly. How much damage does it do? It does a considerable amount of damage, over 50%. Gonna raise both of its attack defense stats. And we're gonna see an Iron Defense from Kommo-o. And with the Grassy Terrain Recovery and the leftovers, could it survive a second?
Yeah, the rest of this battle will probably play out a little slowly. I think Kommo-o will try to protect this upcoming turn, try to gain a little bit more health back, let Rillaboom chip away at Enamorus a little bit.
And the more Iron Defenses that Kommo-o gets, the stronger.
Yeah, I think that with the Iron Defense and with all of that healing, that was a ton of healing, it might actually be able to take another superpower right off the bat. Although at the same time, you do always have to be, okay.
Yeah, you have to be worried about a double target into the Rillaboom instead of reading to protect. So we're going to get another boost. So if Body Press is shown, it's going to be neutral damage. Wood Hammer goes into the Enamorus, +2 defense and Grassy Terrain up. Not a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Body Press comes out, is now neutral, and is enough to take the Enamorus, and Sean Pinto wins round 1 of Regulation E's Gym Challenge number 14.
Yeah, that was a huge victory there for Sean. Well played by both sides. I was very excited by that one, and it was cool to see Pokemon like the Ogerpon Wellspring and the Kommo-o coming in new to Regulation E and putting up good performances.
Good performances indeed, and that's a good start for Sean as he looks into getting into the new season and the new regulations in the Teal Mask with that much needed win. And sadly for all the Mono Fairy fans, you guys just had to see the Enamorus just fall to a body press.
Yeah, that was, I mean, that's what you get out of Terastallization, especially at this point in the Scarlet and Violet metagame, where both sides do know that Terra Steel is the option for both of them, and they target fighting moves into each other. It's, I don't know, it's gotten pretty fascinating.
Yeah, but what's going to be more fascinating is what kind of Overcons we see. We do know it has 4 forms. We saw the first form being water, but we're seeing every form have at least some metagame value, and we're gonna see more Ogerpons today in today's tournament. So we're gonna go on a quick break. We're gonna go on a quick break, and we'll be back for round number 2 after this break.